Alright, Mike, we're sitting here at the Pacific Northwest Survivals game, and we are about an hour and 15 minutes or so out from our lecture. How excited are you?
Very, actually. Definitely didn't know what to expect coming into this, but it's fantastic to see. That's a very lively sort of environment. It makes me feel much more at home, and I think it's going to be very fruitful.
This is the
Cool.
Yep. This is like all the way you wanted with the gold.
Alright, everybody.
Alright. We wanted red trim.
How we doing today?
I can show you the work order. We're done.
Did you guys have some fun today?
Yeah. Worth it.
I'm envious. I really wanted to be here earlier.
Yeah.
Seems like a good time.
Stuck working.
Biko, guys, we're going to start the talk. Thank you.
Well, my name is Tyler. I run the... Hi. I run a podcast called Bigfoot and the Citizen Scientist podcast. And we started a research team out of it. It started out as just myself. In 2019, August, up in the Mountain National Forest, I was up camping by myself. It was about 10:30 at night, and I was supposed to meet one of my buddies come up to camp, and realized he wasn't coming. And so kind of started to resign myself to the fire, hanging out. I had a lake in front of me and surrounded by forest in a little bowl area. And it was, like I said, it was about 10:30 at night, and I started feeling like something was looking at me from behind my shoulder. Kind of like when someone, you're sitting in class or something, and someone's staring at you. So I just kind of did one of the look backs over my back left shoulder. And approximately 20 feet, poking out behind a tree, I saw what looked to be what I know now, a juvenile Sasquatch. It was about my size, my height. There was no noises, no sound, no smells, no anything else involved. It was just kind of a feeling, and then look back and I see it. And I didn't know what I was looking at. It lasted for about 4 seconds. I remember its eyes were sunken in deep. Its eyes were black. Not saying its eyes color was black, but we'll get into that. But anyways, so it was staring at me, and the one thing I remember most was its lips were pursed. Like it was like, oh shit, I'm busted, or it was about to whistle. And so I'm staring at this thing. It lasts for about 4 seconds, and then it slips back behind the tree super quick. I'm staring back behind my shoulder with my jaw on the ground this whole time. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, in Brighten, Oregon. Spent my whole life camping, fishing, hunting, so I've known about Sasquatch, the idea of it, but it's always been like one animal to me and one male, and so I didn't really have a realistic idea of what Sasquatch is. And so I'm looking at this thing, disappears behind the tree, and then I'm sitting there, and I sat there for about 10 seconds or so, give or take, maybe 20-30 seconds before I was able to pick my jaw up off the ground and kind of stare off to the fire, trying to figure out what the hell I just saw. And it was about a couple minutes after that, I decided to wrap it up and go into my car. And so I got in the car, shut the door, shut and locked the doors, and proceeded to fall asleep. And the super weird thing was I was like freaked out, and I have really bad insomnia usually. And the second my head hit the pillow, I was done for. Was it adrenaline rush? Maybe. I don't know what it was to this day. But it completely opened up my eyes to the idea of Sasquatch being around. It's always been folklore. If you ask any of your other friends, they'll laugh at you. You talk about Bigfoot and all that stuff. Sometimes. But
Not me.
So that was kind of my introduction into the reality of it. Prior to that, like 3 months prior to that, I had got into the subject of Sasquatch. Just I was bored. I had just discovered podcasts, so I found this podcast that I wanted to download, Sasquatch Chronicles, and I started listening to it. And there's this thing on there they do called call blasting. So pretty much you go to an area, and you take a reported Sasquatch call, and you put it over a loudspeaker as loud as it can, so it can send over a canyon area. And the idea is you do this and you get a call back while your recorder's running, so you can catch an audio recording. So I was doing that this day, and this is my very first time ever. And I went up to the spot, dead end road, did this call, and within milliseconds after I turned the volume down, something came on the back passenger side of my car and hit my car so hard that it was rocking back and forth, like my leaf springs were creaking. Freaked me out, obviously, got the hell out of there. Scared me out of the woods for a few months. Fast forward to my sighting, because at that point I was irritated and pissed off. I had been having one of my buddies come up, and we were bringing guns and stuff, trying to ease myself back into the idea. So I had my sighting, and then I went headfirst into the subject. Started a podcast because there's a ton of science behind the subject that not many people know about. There's PhDs in it, and the subject, such as Dr. Jeff Meldrum from Idaho State University, and he's no longer with us, but Dr. Grover Krantz from Washington State University, that both are vehemently
they're the sorts of people that will not say definitively that they believe that Sasquatch exists, but based on the evidence that they have seen, and it's substantial. Dr. Jeff Meldrum himself inherited Dr. Grover Krantz's cast collection, and has, it's a massive room at Idaho State University where, and mind you, Dr. Jeff Meldrum is a professor, as a physical anthropologist with a specialization in primate foot morphology and the evolution of bipedalism with the primates. And I put all of my faith in this person, honestly, but he scrutinizes these footprints, and he has seen characteristics that would be very hard to fake, but also that led him to believe that, yeah, there's something out there. And the fact that he doesn't say, oh, I know this exists, I believe this exists, but the evidence leads him to believe that there could be something, which is why he, even while risking his professional career as an academic, continues to this day to pursue this thing, and that was very intriguing for me. Yeah, Dr. Jeff Meldrum's fantastic.
Yeah, so science. But so I learned that there's all this science behind it, so I wanted to educate the public. And I kind of pulled, make it kind of like a learning podcast along with storytelling. So I was kind of doing a little bit of both. And it got to the point where I just mainly wanted to focus on my research. So that's when I pretty much wrangled in my 4 best friends, and we've all had some sort of happening go on, unexplainable happening, and so we started researching. That was in 2020, 2021, I believe it was, maybe, we've since then created like a little team. We're focused in on collecting scientific data on the subject. So we have like a Google Drive sheet that we type in our location, our findings, the time of day, the moon cover, all just get as specific as we can. That way, if we go back to the spot, we can kind of pinpoint the general areas that they're in. And we can hopefully potentially be in that area and get them on the thermal camera or audio or a game cam or something. So that's basically what we do. We implement, like I just said, nighttime vision cameras. He's got a flare around his neck, and
Can't really see it, but
and then we also do long-range recording, which basically is we take this tube setup, and all this does is makes it weatherproof. And then we got a mic port right here and a mic port right here. And then you come in here, and it's a recorder hardwired to 2 C-cell batteries. So I have up to 1.5 to 2 months worth of battery life on this recorder.
Wow. There it is.
Wow, whose is that?
2.5 months.
And I'm the audio analyst, so I'm the one who goes through all of that. It's tedious.
Yeah.
Every Sasquatch. So we actually put it up on what's called a spectrograph, so you can visually see the audio on the spectrograph. So you can kind of span through and see and listen. So you don't have to listen to hundreds of hours like Mike does, but he just likes to do it.
I'm stubborn. You don't want to miss anything.
Right.
How many times have you actually seen him?
I've seen a Sasquatch, a full-on visual sighting one time in 19, and then last 2 summers ago at the same lake that I had my sighting at in 2019. Me and my team were up there, and we had a possible partial sighting. I say possible partial because it was from across the lake. It was about 500 to 1,000 yards away. It was dusk, but I could clearly see there was more to it. We've heard noises, a bird flying in, beaver slapped its tail on the water. It was crazy. So it brought my attention over to where it was, and all of a sudden I see this like bipedal shoulder, a little bit of the head, and shoulder slope, and this brush, like peeking up over this brush. And I'm thinking my eyes are seeing things because it's dusk, it's a long ways away, and I don't have any sort of lens on my eye or anything like that. I'm asking these guys, you guys see this? Like, and then, right? Yeah. And then it was shortly after I asked that, and they weren't seeing anything. I asked Mike to hand me the fluor.
Yeah, I was hogging the thermal and focusing on what appeared to be a heron that had just flown in, which caused the beaver to tail slap and panic. So I was sitting there going like this, and he's looking somewhere else. So
I'm like, Mike, give me the camera, hand me the fluor. And right as he hands it to me, and I put it like right as it goes up to my eye, I watch it just and go. So I don't know what it was.
So, are you sure? Now, don't y'all take this wrong. But are you sure that it just wasn't an 8-foot hairy white man?
It could be. Because I didn't see it. I still maintain to this day it could have been a tall person in a ghillie suit.
I'm just saying.
I don't know. That's why. But so I've had a full-on sighting in 19, and then we have a research partner that lives in East Tennessee, and he had him and his entire family, 5 of them, saw 3 Sasquatch in East Tennessee in '94. I think.
Wow.
And yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So with all your data that you're keeping now in this Google sheet and everything,
Yeah.
are there more concentrated areas of sightings here specifically? Because I'm born and raised Oregonian as well, and of course, growing up with hearing all this, never seen anything, but I do get those feelings from camping my whole life.
Yeah.
You get those feelings, right? You get those feelings like something's watching you.
Feelings aren't facts, but they're still there.
Right.
Yep.
Are there more concentrated areas of the state that you guys have seen?
Yeah, so Clackamas County has the most reported sightings of the
Clackamas
entire
County?
Yes, in the entire state of Oregon.
Wow.
Mount Hood being the hot spot.
Yep.
Yeah, let's see what else is there.
I mean, honestly, anything around the Cascade Range leading up into BC, leading up into Canada.
Right, up to the Mount Hood Forest region. And all that,
Yeah.
So can you tell us about your connection with Tony and going out to? Was it around?
Yeah, it was about that area.
Yeah.
So. So I think it was about a month ago or so. I work at the North American Bigfoot Center. I've worked there for about a year now. And we got an email, and I think it was an email from Tony talking about, Tony's friend emailed us talking about his encounter that happened. He found a tree branch that had possibly been ripped down the road, across the road, as if to block him in. And then he found a possible footprint. And so we kind of, my boss sent me out to go take a look at it. It's a very, what they call squatchy environment, super gamey. There would be lots of elk, lots of bear, lots of cougar around, which bear and cougar territory happen to be the same, if not close to Sasquatch territory, seemingly. And so he took me out to the first tree across the road, and it was definitely suspect. There was a couple things about the way that it had been looked like it had been pushed over. It was splintered out at the base on the ground, with the splintering facing away from the road. So it was definitely aimed down the road, and then across the road. I'm sorry. And then as you got to about mid part on the branch itself, it looked to be clear claw-like indentations, that had stripped the bark off this branch, and it was as if 2 things with fingers came up and just, like, while ripping down, locked grip. It was interesting for sure. I'm an extremely analytical minded person, very skeptical. I always take everything with a grain of salt, but especially anything when it comes to wood stuff, trees, any of that stuff, because it's a 1 in a million chance of anything like that happens, but how many trees are in the wild? So, Mother Nature's nuts, man. I've seen some crazy stuff. So I documented that, and I found, took some documentation of that, and told him, the areas where I thought was interesting. He pointed out some extra ones, and then he took me out to go look at the footprint, the possible footprint that he found. And I will say it was soupy everywhere. There was like a little pond in the middle of the forest. And I'm little, as in like this size, like this circle. It was small. And on the outside there was bear prints galore, elk, deer. I saw a rabbit. But right where this possible Sasquatch print was, it clearly looked like a heel indentation, toe flexibility, which from our research we know that's a thing with Sasquatch. That's most of the time we get 3 to 4 toes on our footprints that we find because weight displacement. And so I was looking at it and decided to take a cast of it, and so we cast it out. Like I said, the area was super gamey. There was a little creek that ran right next to it, unfortunately, because of how wet it was and all the substrate was so slick and mucky, it came out like a little pool. Unfortunately, and I let Tony know that too. But the picture, if you look at it, I don't know if you guys have seen his pictures that he has. You can kind of make out what it is. That's the problem with our substrate in the Pacific Northwest. It's either really hard or it's super soft.
A lot of duff.
Yeah, so in both of those conditions are near impossible to pull a valid print. Like the super hard makes it a shallow print. So like the very first ever footprint that we ever found on Mount Hood, on the east side of Mount Hood, the print was about quarter inch thick, and it looked like it was deeper than what it was, but it's because there was so much silt and soft sand on the top of it. It makes it thin. Super soupy conditions and soft conditions. The water soaks into the plaster, and it can mess up a lot of the dramatic lithics, the details into the cast. And so usually there's a way to combat that, but this day I just came from work and I didn't have 20 pounds of plaster on me to make it super thick. So we used what we could.
So what should you do? What should you do if you encounter a Sasquatch?
Fucking run!
What's the protocol?
Get the hell!
My question's real. What about DNA? Like, if you found a tree branch or if you find a footprint, can you collect the hairs or look around? Does maybe do DNA stuff?
Absolutely, you can. The problem with finding their DNA is we have nothing in our database to match it.
So that's cool.
So it comes up as unknown.
All right.
So, which means it's not possible. It could possibly be Sasquatch, but there's no sign. There's no definitive.
But do those unknown DNAs match each other?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
What the fuck?
Yes. Yeah. Ask science,
what
not
the
us.
actual
I don't know.
So there is established connection between sightings and materials.
Yes.
But we
100%.
don't have an established assumption as to what it is.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That's super dope.
Yeah.
So how old is this beast?
Multiple creatures, I would say, first off.
There's more than one?
So take it out of the...
Well, hell.
It's not locked.
So taking it out of the idea that it's one creature...
It's a family?
If it's to be a legitimate species, there would have to be a decent population for procreation.
So there's a she-foot?
Actually, if you think about the Patterson Gimlin film of 1967,
I'm just saying.
it is actually a female.
There is actually a female.
Yeah, one of the most famous Sasquatch videos coming out of 1967 from Bluffton, California, is actually a female Sasquatch. They call her Patty. She's about 6'5".
Fatty?
Patty.
Oh, Patty.
Yeah, named after Patterson.
Sorry, I thought you said fatty. I'm like,
but yeah,
Very Patty. So what's your guys' take on why nobody's ever found remains?
Oh yeah, that's a good
So,
question.
how many people here have found any cougar or bear remains in the woods over their times? Yeah, and how many times has that happened?
Oh, like twice.
Okay, so that's
they're all
honestly
over
in
phenomenal.
45
And
years.
but there's also 30,000 black bear in Oregon. So
More in Montana.
yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Yeah, a lot more. In
a lot more in Montana.
And brown bear. Yeah.
I've never
So-
seen any here.
So I have another question here. Since my partner here and I have known each other for a really long time and camped together a really long time. Tillamook Forest area,
Okay. Yeah.
Johns Creek
Yep.
in particular. Both of us have thought there was always something out there. How many? Yeah. How many sightings have been around that area?
A lot. There's actually a research team out of Tillamook County that study it. The problem with Tillamook is all the roads up there are private. They're either logging or they're private, so it's really hard to find open national forest roads up there.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, me and one of my research partners in it was right before the huge fires. It was like the day before they hit because we got chased out of there by the winds. Me and my cousin have had some very unexplainable noises and visuals happen out of Tillamook County.
Yeah.
They're definitely there. Yeah.
So, the abominable snowman. I know that sounds like a funny. I know
talking about Sasquatch.
Yeti.
But I'm just curious, do they have their own like research team and do you guys talk and does that DNA match?
So I don't know of any. So Sasquatch / Bigfoot, depending on what you want to call it. Bigfoot's more of the Americanized.
BMW?
Yeah. Sasquatch is more of like the
Is there a native name?
Native American term.
Yeah.
Is there a native
Was
name?
it Sasquatch?
Sasquatch is derived from the native name Sasquatch, which comes from British Columbia, and it was an American writer who I think it was who went over there and learned about the Sasquatch, and when he went to write it down, he couldn't spell Sasquatch, so it's Sasquatch. And then 1972 was when the name Bigfoot was dubbed. By Jerry Crew out in California. But
The abominable snowman.
One thing about the Yeti,
Yeti.
I mean,
yeah, it's saying
again, there hasn't been a lot of research done into that. I mean, just purely because of the climate and where it's at exactly. And obviously, people who can track know that footprints in the snow are very easily distorted from various different conditions. And so it's a lot easier to get certain footprints that, you know, if a person steps out, you know, you get the right wind conditions, it ends up looking a lot larger. So that's always difficult. I know, was it Peter Green? Burns in the 1960s led an expedition into the Himalayas to search for Sasquatch and actually pulled a couple prints, and he was trying to bring them back into the country and had a lot of trouble getting it through customs. And again, this is a long time ago, but he enlisted the help of one of his movie star friends, and it's Jimmy Stewart, and his wife, and they actually stuck the footprints back into the United States in his wife's luggage because at the time they considered it rude to go through a woman's things, and so that's how they got it back. But again, with the snow distortion, there's not a lot of detail that could be gleaned from it. So honestly, in contrast to Sasquatch research or any evidence for the Yeti, it's a lot more difficult because it's a very difficult terrain, as we can all imagine, and it's also, well, I mean, just from a simple term, it's in a different country, and it's very difficult to send a lot of people over there into those conditions to look for that sort of a thing.
well,
So-
and then so the Yetis and Sasquatches, that'd be like the brown bear to the black bear. So they're the same within, and that's what we're not from their foot morphology. Their foot morphology is more like caveman-like. It's more human-like. Same thing with their appearances. In Russia, they have a wildlife sanctuary for the Yeren, is what they call it. They're Sasquatch. China has, Amnesty. Russia is Amnesty. China has a wildlife refuge for the Yeren, which is their Sasquatch.
A refuge?
Yes,
Like, don't go
the
over
government
there,
recognizes the existence. We are the only government that doesn't recognize the existence of Sasquatch. Literally,
I should've
the
let
only
them have
government.
You want to know why I think that is?
Why?
Yeah.
Logging money.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Right on. Right on.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit.
Yeah,
So
Sharon's not
you say there's a she-foot and there's a Bigfoot, and is there any record of any baby feet?
Yeah, we actually at the North American Bigfoot Center we have baby
Shut the front
footprints
door,
and
I'm
juvenile.
right.
We even have a valid. It was gathered by Dr. Justin Eldrum out of the Blue Mountains. Huge butt print in the back. You guys need to come look at.
What?
You can see the tailbone and everything. Yes, 100%.
For my baby.
Oh no, from a grown adult.
Okay.
Yeah.
But do we know?
But just below the butt print is a little baby footprint.